Namaskar. We're going to learn a new term also about how opinion is made. You will see a lot of things that are happening in Great Britain, in United Kingdom, as to how people's opinions are being shaped. In fact, only one survey has been taken whether the people of United Kingdom are supporting its government in its support for Ukraine. So everything today, this is a very interesting slide deck in my opinion, because we're going to take a look at it from a few years back, because it's not something that happened overnight. It wasn't like in February 2022 that Russia decided to invade Ukraine. It's been festering for a long time. We're going to take a look at all that stuff in this compelling slide deck. Please like this video, and also if you have not subscribed to our channel, kindly do so. Here we go. Is UK aiming to trigger World War III? So what happened on the 28th of February? Remember, on Friday, this almost explosive meeting between Trump, J.D. Vance, and Zelensky took place, and Zelensky came straight from there to London. He didn't even go back to Ukraine. He went straight to London, and then suddenly there is a lot of activity there. Now, I'll come to that in just a moment, but let's go steps back. Within a week of the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, Ukraine and Russia were willing to sit down and sign a ceasefire. But then somebody came and scuttled it. Who was it? It was UK's Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. He said to Zelensky, don't negotiate with Russian President Putin because he is a war criminal and he should be pressured, not negotiated with. So with that, Ukraine backed off, Zelensky backed off. And also looks like he said that the West was not ready to deal with Putin, effectively sabotaging diplomatic efforts between Ukraine and Russia, and that ended up in this prolonged conflict. Now, there are some statements there as to how it felt like Ukraine was winning in the initial phase, because it is believed that Russia had sent some very taken a very soft approach towards the annexure of Ukraine. If you remember, their 64-kilometer column of vehicles that had come up to Kiev, but then they had to return. All sorts of things happened at that point of time. But once the war prolonged, it became more and more apparent that there's only one side that can go on to win this. Although Ukraine keeps coming back with surprises, they keep fighting, but at what cost? That's the question. So in September 2024, there was this article that said Boris Johnson avoided promoting a compromise peace in Ukraine after Russia invaded. Now Labour continues to help prolong the conflict to secure British interests. So note that it didn't matter whether it was a Conservative leader or a Labour leader. Both of them don't want Ukraine to settle. So what gives? Who is really managing the levers? Well, some say that Johnson's stance may have influenced Ukraine's decision to halt peace negotiations with Russia at that time. Was it just Johnson, or was Johnson saying that United States also wants you to do this? We don't know, because that part has not been leaked out yet, and US has not said anything. All we know is that there were several instances where even Biden would shout at Zelensky that you are not listening to what I'm saying. So you get this thing, right? Biden, with his reduced ability to even discern things around him, was shouting at Zelensky. So there is something there. Somewhere Zelensky has somebody else who has got a dotted influence on him. We don't know who that is. And people also say that when he came to Washington DC this time, that he was coached by Susan Rice and a few other people from the Democratic Party on how to conduct himself in that meeting and how to provoke Trump. They wanted an explosive response from Trump, and Trump didn't take that bait. He had expected this fully along. So you have some very smart players here engaging in all these diplomatic duels. So just wait and watch how this plays out. Now, The British establishment consistently opposed the implementation of the Minsk Agreement. There were two Minsk agreements. The first one was called the Minsk I that took place in 2014, and then Minsk II that took place in 2015. This was aimed to de-escalate the conflict in eastern Ukraine by between Ukraine and the Donbass region, the two provinces which have a very high Russian-speaking population, and they were supposed to de-escalate the conflict here by, having steps such as ceasefires, withdrawal of heavy weapons, and constitutional reforms to grant autonomy to certain regions. In fact, there are recorded instances of atrocities being committed by Ukraine on these two provinces. These are recorded. I'm not saying that this is something that's been contrived. So there are faults on both sides. The implementation itself failed because both Russia and Ukraine felt that the other side was not implementing it. Sometimes the accords are written in a way that to fail. So essentially the chance of succeeding itself starts out at 0% and then it just stays there. Now, what was asked? The Donbass region wanted some autonomy, having seen Crimea being snatched away and integrated with Russia. And this is where things started getting funny. Ukraine didn't want that, and they put it down with very, very heavy force. And then, if you remember, on 22nd February, 2 days before that, the two, what I would call as the governors of these two provinces were in Moscow, and they were sitting with Putin when he announced that he was annexing that these two were now merging with Russia. Even today, the entire region has not been captured by Russia. Only some parts have been. That's where things stand. So in all these things, why is the United Kingdom pushing for a military confrontation? And why is it worsening the crisis? This, nobody seems to want to explain why. Starmer's recent high-profile meeting was a direct provocation following US President Trump's meeting with Zelensky. Like I said, he flew straight from DC to London. The UK government recently reaffirmed its military support to Ukraine, potentially influencing diplomatic dynamics involving the US. So UK is turning against the United States. Wow. Or is it something not so drastic, but where people are not seeing at a certain thing in the same way? They're looking at it from different angles. On March 1st, 2025, Chancellor Rachel Reeves of the United Kingdom signed the a 2.26 billion pounds or $2.8 billion loan agreement aimed at bolstering Ukraine's defense capabilities with Ukraine's finance minister Sergei Marchenko. See, the interesting thing here is the loan is structured to be repaid using profits generated from sanctioned Russian sovereign assets held in the EU. Who gives it right, whether it is Ukraine or UK, to go and take the profits from the assets of Russia? See, this has to be actually put in an accord in writing. Only then the money can be moved out of there. But how did then UK and Ukraine decide that they will go ahead and do this thing? Is it just like for the sake of words that they are saying that this money will be paid from there and therefore Ukraine doesn't have to pay UK, but finally it will be like a write-off? Is that what UK is thinking of doing? I don't know. This is very unusual, very unusual. In addition to this financial support, the UK has committed to maintaining a $3 billion in military aid to Ukraine annually, every year, for as long as necessary. 3 million, you divide it by 12 and you get the number for each month. I think it's 250 million. This divergence in approaches could lead to friction between the UK and the US, and the UK's steadfast support for Ukraine may not align with the evolving US stance. Okay, so the government has decided, it doesn't matter whether it's conservatives in power or Labour in power, they have decided that they want the war to continue and that they will be able to help out. In fact, there is a speech that you can see yesterday that Keir Starmer delivered at Lancaster House, where many other heads of state also had assembled, that the UK is going to send some boots on the ground. Whether these are boots of just helping train Ukraine soldiers, or whether they are going to do beyond that, is something that has to be seen. Because if they do beyond that, that means that UK is essentially trying to drag its other NATO countries into this conflict, including the United States. Does the United States approve of this? I haven't seen any indication to that effect. By the way, guys, the tariffs against China, Mexico, and Canada take effect tomorrow. So they are taking effect tomorrow. No change in that. So the British media has completely been one-sided in its pro-war stance. Completely with the government. Doesn't matter whether it's Conservative or Labour. Figures such as Niall Ferguson, John Healey, and Penny Mordaunt have been vocal proponents of increasing military support for Ukraine, often dismissing calls for negotiations. You don't have money to feed your own illegal immigrants. Why are you trying to do this? I don't know. Nobody wants to ask this question, and nobody is replying. I thought the British democracy was quite vibrant, with the press, having the freedom of speech and all that stuff. At least I'm glad the US media has exhibited a much broader spectrum of what is going on in Ukraine. Who is this Niall Ferguson? Well, this guy is, I think he's part British, part American. He's also worked at Harvard, and he's one of those guys who was identified. See, this is something that we all need to keep in mind. Remember, in 2006 or 7, Congress had already identified Modi as the danger man and started attacking him. Same way, Niall Ferguson consistently attacks J.D. Vance. So do they see something that we all are not seeing? That J.D. Vance, since he's only 39 now, if he is going to be around, he's going to be around for a while. That means that the problem for the deep state or the Democratic Party is going to be huge to surmount this. They don't have any leadership close to this. And the leadership in that age band even among Democrats have screwed it up royally. Whether it is the Transportation Secretary Buttigieg or what's the other guy, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is an embarrassment. Anyway, so Niall Ferguson, he is consistently advocating for a robust response to Russia and in favor of military aid to Ukraine. The interesting statement that Zelensky said, that you are fortunate that there is an ocean separating you from the area where the war is taking place. I think that applies to United Kingdom also. It's also not geographically connected with Europe. So be that as it may, why are all these people, now this is the other guy, John Healey, the current Secretary of State for Defense, has also underscored the necessity for sustained military assistance to Ukraine. What are they afraid of? Really, is Russia going to come and attack UK? Have they done something stupid? Well, they are. I mean, they are trying to take the money that is coming from the profits of Russia's assets, and they want to give that or square that away against what they have given to Ukraine without telling Russia or without getting okay from anybody else. Penny Mordaunt, the former UK Defense Secretary, has cautioned that Britain will face severe consequences if it does not address the threat posed by Vladimir Putin. So now you get the idea, right? It doesn't matter whether it's the Conservative government or the Labour government. Both of them are singing the same tune vis-a-vis Ukraine. And why is that? I wish somebody would explain to me what's the difference between the Conservative government and the Labour government. They seem both same. And the British media, they have become the war's biggest cheerleaders. Mainstream outlets, BBC, The Guardian, The Times, they're all demonizing Russia, saying that this war has to continue, otherwise Russia will overrun them. The characterization has led to concerns about the marginalization of alternative viewpoints. You better not say anything against the government. That appears to be the mantra. For instance, The Times published an editorial, I'm going to read this so I don't make any mistake, supporting the assassination of Russian Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, commander of Russia's chemical, biological, and radiological weapons unit. They published an editorial supporting the assassination of this lieutenant general. You know, BBC needs to make up its mind whether they want to create the news or report the news. This stance prompted Dmitry Medvedev, deputy head of Russia's Security Council, to label the editors of the Times, not BBC, the Times, as legitimate military targets, escalating tensions between Russia and the UK. Additionally, former BBC reporter Robin Aitken has criticized Western media, including the BBC, for their portrayal of Russia, suggesting that coverage has been one-sided and lackstep. One lone dissenting voice from an ex-BBC reporter, Robin Aitken. These instances highlight concerns about British media's impartiality and the suppression of diverse opinions on the Ukraine conflict. What has been interesting here is the British establishment as well as the media have successfully manufactured consent for this endless war, leaving no room for alternative views. And this means that everybody has to fall in line. A study comparing coverage of the Ukraine-Russia conflict by outlets like the BBC and The Guardian revealed a predominance of war journalism framing with peace journalism significantly underrepresented. Then, of course, they go and try and conduct public polls, opinion polls, and they say that there is a general support for aiding Ukraine, but enthusiasm for enhanced military involvement is waning. Again, we don't know whether this was done before they knew that the US had turned off the tap or after the US had turned off the tap, because bulk of the aid is coming from the United States. An Ipsos poll recently revealed that just over half of Britons support the government's provision of economic, humanitarian, and defensive military assistance to Ukraine. Providing assistance is different from trying to egg them to keep fighting. There's a small difference between the two. So I don't know if the question that was asked in the survey was correct, or was it just to say, should Britain support? The concept of manufacturing consent, as proposed by Edward Herman and Noam Chomsky, describes how media can serve elite interests by shaping public opinion to align with specific agendas. All these point to one thing: deep state, City of London. It seems like that is the one that is doing all these things, because they see that their grip over the world is slipping away and that they want to somehow pull everything back. And this is probably basically they're not afraid of pitting UK against United States and try and create a disagreement there. I don't know what's going to be the response of Trump, because Trump has been silent all through this. He's just said that, by the way, the tariffs are going to kick in tomorrow, and has not commented on this one. Russia's actions in Ukraine are widely reported, but similar scrutiny is lacking in other conflicts, leading to an imbalanced public perception. Ukraine also has created damage. The dominance of a singular narrative in the British media landscape can suppress critical discourse and limit public understanding of the complexities surrounding the Ukraine conflict. Now, Starmer waxed eloquent, and he said that there's going to be a 4-step Ukraine plan, and this will will take it across the line, whatever that is. So this was what he's presented in the Lancaster House. I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday. This was a summit where I told you that many of the participating European countries, France, Germany, and so on and so forth, were participating. The UK pledged 1.6 billion to help Ukraine acquire over 5,000 missiles, reaffirming its commitment to continued military support for Ukraine. What is the 4-step Keir Starmer's Ukraine plan? First step involves maintaining the flow of military assistance to Ukraine while intensifying economic sanctions against Russia. The second step underscores that any peace agreement must fully respect Ukraine's sovereignty and security. Third step focuses on strengthening Ukraine's defensive measures to deter any future aggression. Final step proposes the creation of a coalition of willing nations committed to upholding and defending the peace agreement. While all this is happening, I'm also hearing that some private entities from United States are working on repairing the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And if that becomes functional, operational again, would that mean that Germany would switch? See, a lot of other things are going to start happening. You also saw the letter by the president of Slovakia saying that he is not for this. And he also wants the pipeline to be opened so that he can get crude and natural gas from Russia. So, because the winter is still there and they do need the crude and natural gas for heating as well as for other things. The British establishment's role in Ukraine war has been to prolong conflict, escalate tensions with Russia, and prevent diplomatic resolutions. Or is it all a big facade to try and hide people or divert people away from the fact that the Bank of England doesn't have all the gold it claims to have had? Is it possible? I'm just asking you guys a question because it just struck me when I was telling all these things. Why go to such great lengths? What is it that Britain is hiding? I don't know. By pushing Ukraine into a war it cannot win, they risk dragging NATO into a wider conflict, inching the world closer to direct confrontation with Russia. With no serious peace discussions on the table, the British establishment is actively contributing to the conditions for a third world war. That's where we would like to stop here. And I want to see if there are any questions from you all. And if there are, I would like to take them up now. 1 second. There we go. Let me just line up the questions. There are a few questions from you all. Just 1 second. Should never trust any person UK hates. Gandhi, then Zelensky now. UK has become the trash container of the world. I'm just lining up questions, guys. Ram sir has a slightly different opinion from me. No problem. We can all agree to disagree. Here we go. There are a few more questions and I'm almost done. I just want you guys to read it while I continue to line up the questions. Quite a few, my. The Brits are still living in a British Empire dream. Is EU having a weak position if US pulls out of NATO? Oh, absolutely. I don't think they can muster more than 50,000 or 60,000 troops, even if they want to put the boots on the ground. They would need United States or a country like India, and India is not going to do anything to do. It has nothing. It wants to do nothing with a war in Ukraine. So I don't know what's going to happen. The smart thing would have been to just help come to an accord that will help everybody and move on with life. After all, there would have been a small pie in proportion to how much money the EU put into this war effort, and that I don't know. Now that's also up in the air. Games Galore wants to know: US about to show Ukraine the joys of democracy. Regime change, perhaps? Well, that's also being talked about. We'll see. In the next couple of days, we'll know. Mano wants to know: watching series Diplomat on your suggestion, it was fantastic. Suggest some similar diplomatic series. Night Agent, NIGHT, Agent, AGENT. This is also on Netflix. I think 2 seasons so far. Start from the first season. It's very, very good. Very good. Then we have next question from Pawan Kishore. US cannot afford another world war. Will they come out of NATO? Coming out of NATO will give more power to Russia and they can move ahead with their unification of Soviet, weakening the West. Pawan, that is a distinct possibility. I hope it won't happen. I think US is trying to, Trump has a lot on his plate. Let's put it this way. And I think he's trying to take a breather on this, wait for a few days, and maybe he'll try to see if Zelensky can be impeached. Possibility. After all, they did do the Maidan revolution, right? Apramaya wants to know, sir, is the UK being run like a monarchy now under Keir Starmer? Well, it looks like it's not much different from what happened under Boris Johnson. Does UK monarchy have any heavy influence in this war? Do they have leverage over US? No, I don't think so. In fact, they're trying to put some indirect pressure by having Zelensky meet with Prince Charles. They're trying every trick in the book. So we'll have to wait and see. Vijay wants to know, what do the people of Ukraine want? There needs to be public referendum ASAP. Absolutely. I think what Zelensky has done is he has shut off all opposition voices. He has shut off all sites that are opposed to Ukraine. So what is wrong when Trump says that this guy is acting like a dictator? Why is everybody's knickers getting twisted? He is saying something that is correct. These are the characteristics of a dictator. Why is he doing that? Can anyone explain this? Mano wants to know, Sree ji, even if UK gave £3 billion, whom Ukraine will pay those money to get weapons? If US didn't sell any arms, who has that capacity to offer Ukraine? Well, that's a good question, Mano. I think Russia is also waiting to see what's going to happen. And if Zelensky goes, if there's a change in leadership, there could be a change in thinking also on part of Ukraine. And somebody more moderate might come in and might not listen to the deep state as much as Zelensky is. And who knows, could do course correction. It is entirely possible something like that could happen. Because I think this is a little complicated as to what is going to happen moving forward. Is Russia going to give up the spaces that it has occupied? Probably not. They are in fact trying to eject or oust Ukraine from Kursk region. And if that happens, then what little leverage Ukraine had inside Russia also will go away. It's a tough place to be in, and I really don't know the answer. That's why I'm surprised that UK is taking this kind of a bold position. Bold or stupid, I don't know. Only time will tell. Gamers Galore wants to know, 𝗔𝗍𝗘𝗏 𝗣𝗚𝗡𝗞𝗦 for EU leaders. For all the hurt they did to the rest of the world, karma is coming for its dues. And last one, Mitra Mela. Any major conflict will help middle powers, UK, France, and weaken great powers, US and China. Millions will die, but Britain never cared about human suffering. Bengal genocide of the 1940s. I know, I completely agree with you on the Bengal genocide. Nobody talks about this. It's very, very unfortunate, but that did happen. You can't deny that. This question just trickled in. Let me see. 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗧 Singh wants to know, will Canada be the 51st state? I don't know. Do Canadians want to be the 51st state? It's a long process. Both America also have to accept it, and Canadians also have to accept it. It has to be both sides win-win situation for both. I'm not so sure, but anyway, I would just like to wait and see what happens. That's all we have for today. Thank you so much. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.